11 money myths that are holding you back. So to jump right in, the first money myth people believe is that a high income is what makes you wealthy. This is certainly false because over 1/3 of Americans making over $200,000 are still living paycheck to paycheck. And despite what you may think is possible, there are people who are millionaires who never made more than $50,000 a year at any point in their career. The explanation for what may seem contradictory is that you can make a lot of money, but if you have bad financial habits and spend it all, you're never going to see the fruits of your labor. You have to be disciplined to make the decisions that are best, even if it's not the flashiest or the fanciest. Luckily, for all of us, financial discipline is something that everybody can learn and doesn't require you to be born with the skill. There are plenty of people who didn't grow up with money or didn't know what good financial decisions looked like, but they still equip themselves through books, videos, or podcasts with the knowledge to make the correct choice. In a similar vein, the second money myth is that you need a financial advisor to help you invest. Now, I'm not saying that financial advisors are useless, because they can be super helpful for complex financial concepts like tax planning, estate planning, and things like that. However, many people believe that they aren't born smart enough to figure out how to invest, so they need a financial advisor to do that for them. I think this may be because people have this notion in their head that to invest, you have to know how to read technical stock charts and other complex concepts. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. Although a financial advisor can help you make investments, they're likely just going to put you into some sort of fund/portfolio that is approved by their company, which rarely actually outperforms simple S&P 500 funds that anybody can buy through free brokerage accounts. There are tons of great free videos out there on how to invest for beginners that you can educate yourself so you know how to invest. The third myth is that all debt is bad debt. Although sometimes debt is bad, in cases like credit card debt, there is some debt that can be good if it allows your wealth to grow over time. The best example of good debt is having a home mortgage, especially if you can lock one in at a low interest rate. To demonstrate this, let's say you make a down payment of $100,000 with a mortgage of $400,000 on a $500,000 house. If the property appreciates as real estate tends to, later you could sell the house for $550,000. You then take the $550,000, pay off the $400,000 mortgage, and have $150,000 left over. Subtract your $100,000 down payment, and you've made a profit of $50,000. The point I'm trying to make here is that we need to take a closer look at the types of debt we are leveraging and see if they actually provide value. Bouncing off of this, the fourth myth is that using a credit card is bad, when in actuality, credit cards can return positive value when used correctly. Used correctly means only spending money that you actually have, and most importantly, paying off the card balance in full every month. See, banks incentivize people to use credit cards by offering cash back or other rewards, and the only way you can be hurt by using one is if you don't pay your balance off on the card. If you don't pay it off, the bank will charge you exorbitantly high interest rates, which if you're looping it into the last point is an example of bad debt. Luckily, for all of us, when used responsibly, we can get cash back or travel rewards that puts extra money in our pockets by spending the money we already had to spend regardless. If you're curious on how to get started with credit cards, please consider subscribing, as my next video will be a comprehensive beginner's guide to credit cards, where I'll break down how anybody can use credit cards as a powerful financial tool. Now, the fifth money myth is that all banks are created equal. If you're like me, it's possible that your parents helped you to set up your first checking or savings account at the bank they use, and you never looked into switching it. Many people just assume that all bank accounts are the same and that they all charge the same fees, pay out the same interest, etc. However, this is not the case. If you look into the details, especially if you're banking with some of the bigger names like Chase or Bank of America, you'll find that the interest they pay you for keeping your money with them in a savings account is somewhere around 0.47%, which is the national average. But what if I told you that there are bank accounts out there, like SoFi or Ally Bank, that will pay you over 4% interest on your money? These banks offer higher savings rates, which means your money will grow quicker than if you never shopped around and looked into switching banks. The sixth money myth is that buying a home is always better than renting. This one is ingrained in our brains, especially in America, as buying a home is generally considered a staple of the American dream. However, depending on your situation, it may not make financial sense to do so. With current market conditions, there are a lot of places that when you crunch the numbers, it makes more sense to rent than to buy. In some areas, you'll be spending twice the monthly payment amount to own a home rather than to rent. Additionally, if you don't plan on putting some sort of long-term roots down in a location, then it may not make sense to buy. The general rule of thumb is to purchase a house if you plan on being in a location for 5 years, but this isn't a concrete rule. If you're facing this dilemma, it's a good idea to look into what the difference to renting versus buying in your area would be for however long you plan to stay there. The seventh myth to talk about is that wealthy people live extravagant lifestyles. If you look at movies, TV shows, or social media, you might think that all rich people drive fancy cars, dress in designer clothes, and spend money at a whim on everything. However, this isn't necessarily true. A majority of wealthy people actually drive normal, everyday, reliable cars, wear regular clothes, and eat at regular places. And this all comes down to the fact that you don't accumulate wealth by spending recklessly. Rather, you do it through earning and saving. Dave Ramsey, one of the most well-known personal financial gurus and multimillionaire, sums this up perfectly. He says that when people don't waste money trying to look wealthy, they have money to actually become wealthy. And I'm not saying to become wealthy, you can't ever buy anything nice or never spend some money. But what sets apart the wealthy from the not is that they are intentional about their purchases and only do what makes sense. This means when you're early on in your wealth building journey, but you don't have as much or make as much, you can't buy the same things that people who have saved up a lot and are on a higher income have. And that's fine. It's all a process and everybody can make it there, even if they don't think it. The eighth myth is that young people don't need to invest because they can always do it later. This is a mindset that a lot of young people have because they think that retirement and other financial goals are so far off that they don't need to worry about it yet. And while it may be true that retirement is far away, if you're in your 20s, the negative effect of waiting an additional 10 years to get started is drastic. To demonstrate this, let's say that person 1 begins to invest $500 a month at 20 years old, and person 2 invests $500 a month starting at 30 years old. Assuming a retirement age of 65, this means that person 1 is investing for 45 years and person 2 is investing for 35 years. Assuming an annual return of 8%, which is very realistic, person 1 will have $2.3 million and person 2 will have $1 million when they reach age 65. A difference of just 10 out of 45 years can lead to over double the final amount when it comes to investing. And that's why wherever you are at, you should start now. Piggybacking off of this, the ninth myth is that if you're old, you're too late to start investing. If you're into your 40s and you haven't begun to invest, you may think it's not worth it to start now because you don't have as much time as somebody in their 20s. However, that means you still have anywhere from 15 to 25 years left to invest before you turn 65. In this amount of time, a $500 monthly investment can still lead to over $400,000 by the time you retire. This holds true no matter how old you are because even if you're 50, it's still better to start investing now than if you were 65. And if you're 65, it's better to start now than to wait until 80. And as cliche as it sounds, we can't focus on the past because there's still opportunity in front of us every day, whether we recognize it or not. The 10th money myth is that all of our money problems will go away if we just earn more. I think that as humans, we like to think that if we only made more money, then we wouldn't have to worry about the things we have to pay for. However, the truth is that when most people get that raise or that promotion that earns them that extra money, they just go and find things to use it on, like getting a bigger car payment or buying more expensive clothing. They still find themselves worrying about those same bills and money struggles. This is because the issue was never the money. The issue is a lack of financial education. If people are never taught the skills to manage and build wealth, they will make the same bad decisions no matter how much they make. At the end of the day, we just want to learn how to handle our finances in the present so that when we finally do get that raise, we can actually use it to improve our life. The 11th and final money myth is that I need A before B. A bad habit people get into is procrastinating. We're so good at procrastinating that we tend to tell ourselves lies that usually are along the lines of, once I get A, then I'll do B. For example, once I get promoted, then I'll start to tackle my debt. Or, once I make 6 figures, then I'll begin to save for retirement. The issue is that we are taking action predicated upon an event that never correlated in the first place. The truth of the matter is we don't need more money to start to tackle debt. We can just make adjustments to our current budget to find ways to pay it off. Likewise, we don't need to make certain amounts before we take advantage of something like investing, which is readily available to boost our finances. I hope that if you take anything away from this video, it's that you can actually take steps right now to put yourself on the right path towards financial success. You don't need to sit around waiting and hoping for some big life change to set you on your way. Wealthy people become wealthy by taking small steps that aggregate to a lot. If you've watched all the way to the end, I want to say a super big thank you, and please consider subscribing to help out the channel.